All right.
Hi everyone, Leslie Swedish with the Moxie Women's Foundation, and today we are speaking with Major Addy Boyd. Hi Addy, how are you today?
Hi, good.
So where in the world are you speaking with us from today?
So I'm located in Germany.
Okay.
So I'm at it's a small post. It's called Hohenfels, Germany. And not a lot of people, even in the military, even know about it. So it's kind of like a little hidden gem. It's a nice area, though.
How long have you been there?
I've been here since the end of 2014.
Oh wow.
So I've been around for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long do you anticipate being there?
Well, my husband and I have been able to work some unique situations out with our work and how we kind of balance the Army with contracting and different employment opportunities. So I think just because based on our family situation, we're probably going to try and stay out here for around another 5 years
Oh wow.
if we can make it work. So we
Very
love the
nice.
area, and it's really nice. The kids get German and are learning a different language growing up, and there's just a lot of perks on that side of the house for us. So
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, we don't do a whole lot for multilingual accomplishments here in the States. There's not
yeah,
really an emphasis on it. How long
yeah.
have you been in the Army?
So altogether, I've been in the Army for about 21 years.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah. So I actually joined when I was 17. My mom had to sign my paperwork to agree for me to actually get into the military. It was before 9/11, so I had signed up 2001, and my mom, the only reason why she even agreed to it was because we weren't at war. There wasn't anything going on. So she wasn't too concerned about me joining. And then for me, I really wanted to join for college benefits at that time. And so I did a program, it was called Split Option. And I went to basic training in between my junior and senior year of high school. Then I came back and finished senior year of high school like normal. And then I graduated and went to my job training. And originally I was in the National Guard, so I wasn't active duty right away. And started college, and then our unit actually got mobilized because 9/11 happened my senior year of high school. So it was a really unique time to actually begin my military career, seeing the difference and the change of pre-war and going to basic training, and then afterwards going to my job training and my unit being mobilized, and it was just really unique. So yeah, it's been 21 years so far altogether. I've had some breaks in service, but yeah, so quite a while.
Now, what was going through your mind when 9/11 happened and you had already signed on the dotted line?
A lot of questions because I was still young. I had no idea. And then being in the National Guard, you only interact with your unit once a month. You know, back then texting and phones were not as common. So it wasn't something as easy of being able to just reach out to my unit to figure out what was going on. So there were a lot of questions, not only with me, but with everybody in the unit, especially the younger people who were in college or whatnot. So yeah, it was just kind of confusing of, oh no, what do we do? Are we getting activated? Are we going to deploy? What's happening? So it was just kind of a little bit of a time of uncertainty, but also, I guess being in the military and going through it was also kind of intriguing in a way because it really meant something was moving and it was, going to impact us. So yeah, for me, I think at that time though, it definitely was a lot of questions.
Yeah, I imagine many of
Yeah.
them. Is,
Yeah.
is your husband also in the military?
He was before.
Okay.
he served for, I want to say 5 years or 6 years. So not very long. And then he decided to get out, and he's been over here in Germany for quite a while. And I met him here when I moved over. So
Very nice.
yeah.
Where are some of the other places that you've been posted?
So like with my military career, it's interesting. So within the Army, we have 3 different components. You have active duty, you have National Guard, and reserves. And originally I was in the National Guard, so I was with Colorado National Guard. So after 9/11 happened, I went through my job training, so then I was actually certified to do my job, and we got activated to Fort Carson. So my first duty station technically was Fort Carson.
Where's that?
In Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah, in Colorado Springs. So
It's awful
sorry.
there. I'm
No,
sure it was
that's true.
terrible.
I was, yeah, no, it's so common for us. I'm like, oh yeah, everybody knows where Fort Carson is or the forts or whatever. So no, it's okay. Yeah, and then I actually got to leave the mobilization early, and I went to college for 4 years on an ROTC scholarship. So that was great. So I was able to do all my schooling, and I actually kind of took a break from the military, from the National Guard or Reserves, just to focus on college and just do ROTC. Mm-hmm. And that was at University of Colorado in Boulder. And so that's where I was at. And then after I graduated, I commissioned into the officer corps. And for the first year, I moved around a lot because they have us doing a lot of training. So I was in Washington, and I was in Georgia, Arizona, and then finally my first true duty station was Texas, Fort Hood. And so that was my first one. And then with them, I was in a heavy brigade, which is a unit that's a lot more focused on like tanks, like heavy equipment, like big artillery, stuff like that. And then when I left there, and with that unit, I deployed with them to Iraq in 2009. 2008. And so we did a year deployment in Iraq, and then I came back, did some schooling in Arizona, and then in Hawaii, I went to Schofield Barracks next, and I went to an aviation brigade, which was really fun. So I got to learn all about aviation, Army aviation, and with them, I went to Afghanistan for a year, and so I did a deployment with them and we went, and that was in, I think, 2012 to 13. And then after that, I had the opportunity to take command of a company of 175 soldiers, also in Hawaii. And that was really, really, truly an amazing experience. And then following that is when I came out to to Germany, where I've been ever since.
That's amazing. That's so much. Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan, what it was like to be female in the military in what to me seem like very strange lands?
Yeah, it definitely is different environments. The whole thing around deploying is difficult. It was difficult for everybody. So I would say for me, my first unit had very different experiences from my first deployment to my second deployment. My first deployment, the unit was much more, it was much more male dominated, like male mentality, not very disciplined, not very professional. So me being a new lieutenant, it was a lot to learn. How to be tactful and how to deal with people that were inappropriate or rude. And actually I had a really good NCO, which is an enlisted side of the house. There's enlisted and officer sides. And I had a E5 NCO female, and she was awesome. And she really helped guide me a little bit, if you will, to be able to know how to handle some of the situations a little bit better. And so it was interesting. There were different dynamics that were happening. You had the dynamics of men not being around a lot of women often, a lot of gossip, a lot of talk. Everybody was always trying to be in everyone's business. I couldn't go and have lunch with a male colleague without it being assumed that we were sleeping together. So you really had to look at who you were hanging out with, how you were hanging out. There was like writing, dudes would just be so dumb. They would like write profanity or different things on the porta-johns and stuff like that.
Really?
And it wasn't
I don't know why I'm
surprised. Yeah. And I think the other dynamic too that's not often talked about is the female to female dynamic, which was sometimes difficult. Because when you're in environments like that, it can be challenging in the sense that you're not only working to get your job done, be professional, but you have challenges of all of these, outside influences of being away from home, being away from family, normalcy. And so people just act a little bit different and crazy. And so I actually had a hard time struggling, I think, more with working with other women in the military at that time because there was some jealousy. There was gossip. There were a lot of dynamics that I wasn't used to dealing with for a while. Like in college, I didn't deal with it. I always had great women around me that we got along. It wasn't catty. So I think in that one, I really learned a lot more about perceptions and how people perceive you, and how, for me, it was important to be open and honest and approachable, and also be able to approach other people. So not only the male population, but the female population, which was more limited, but it was still really hurtful at times. Because to me, I feel like as women, especially in the military, and you're in units that don't have a lot of women, you should be working together and supporting each other and like boasting each other, instead of trying to cut each other down or talk behind each other's back or things to this nature. So it was an interesting dynamic, my first one. But my second one was actually a lot better in the aviation brigade. I think within the aviation arena, there's a lot more females that are integrated as pilots and in their organizations. So it wasn't as kind of like cutthroat as it felt like with my first deployment. It was a lot more professional. There was not a lot of degrading of women or anything to that nature. So it was really interesting for me. It was kind of a night and day deployment experience, and it was just based off of the organization and the people within the organization, I think.
Nice.
So
yeah. I mean, I imagine so. I tend to pay attention to things like masculine energy and feminine energy and things like that. And, I can imagine that it would be difficult for women to relate to each other really well if they have to lean so heavily into their masculine energy. It almost seems like that's just not conducive for good female bonding. So I can see how that would happen, but it's really too bad. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the, trials and tribulations of being female in such a male-dominated, I don't want to say industry because it's more of a culture than anything, aside from, pornographic writings on Johns?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that the Army specifically, in my perspective, has really grown a lot over the last several decades. When I first came in, when I was younger, I did have some NCOs that were way too profound, like using profanity, sexually harassing me, and felt comfortable and okay with it, which was not okay. And, luckily I had the confidence enough to cut it down and to stop it. and to tell them that I didn't appreciate that and I wasn't okay. But that wasn't always the case for a lot of girls. So it makes it tough, because especially when you're younger, you don't quite know, and especially if you're enlisted versus officer, and you don't think that you have the ability to say something because you're a different rank, or you're at a different pay grade is what we call it, or rank. And so it's unfortunate that sometimes, there's been situations that were uncomfortable, or, just went too far, something like that. But for me, I think the thing that I've noticed the most, and I've been fortunate enough, the fact that I've been confident, I've had the ability to confront people, to bring up any issues, and that's just stories. And that's just, I guess, who I am. And, but for me, I think I've seen a huge transition and a huge growth, which is really good. So when I was younger, it was definitely very obvious to me that it was harder to be a woman, definitely, in the Army. And my first unit, I definitely experienced a lot of hardships with that and just growth. And I think recently, though, it doesn't feel, there's different things that come out that we see in social media and the news and stuff of some of the changes. But when we're looking at the change within the Army, it is happening in the sense of being able to be more open, not only for women, but for everybody. And being able to have it be more of a normalcy. I remember it was crazy to me that there has always been women in combat arms branches. And it just wasn't formalized necessarily. And so when it got formalized, there was a lot of talk of like, oh my gosh, what are these women doing in these branches? Or the few females that went through Ranger School and were passing and everything else. And there was a lot of hardship about that. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, this is crazy. You work with women every day. You have women in your unit in multiple capacities that, so some of those things are just like a little mind blowing, but it's a cultural shift. It's a cultural change within the Army organization itself, but it's happening, and that's what's good. It's not weird to have, in my experience and where I've been, it's not weird to have women in leadership roles, to have women, being in charge, to have an environment where you can feel comfortable working. So that is something that I think is really good and has been a great improvement over the last several decades, from my perspective and where I work and what I do. So.
And what is it that you do? What is your job?
So currently, I was talking about the three components. I was National Guard before, Reserve, and then I was active duty from 2007 to 2017. And then I went into the reserves. And so that's how I've been able to stay over in Germany so long. So I've been in the reserves, and then I was also contracting for DOD. So with the reserve side of the house, I'm an instructor, and I teach other majors. They call it professional military education. So it's schooling that we all go through to be able to get promoted to the next rank. And so that's what I do on a regular basis. And currently with that, I still fall under my reserve unit, but I'm on active duty orders for a year. And it's a year-to-year extension, and I can extend it if I want. So on my active duty side, I'm actually in charge of a small team, and we work at JMRC in Hohenfels, and we help liaison Reserve and National Guard units to come over and support the active duty units for our training exercises. So it's interesting. I've been learning a lot. But the funny thing, so talking about women in the military, JMRC's, the permanent party people are pretty small. It's not a large base. It's not something like Fort Hood or even like Schofield Barracks in Hawaii or anything. It's pretty small. And I think that I am one of the first female leaders that have been at the organization. I don't know if ever, but definitely at least within the last 8 years.
Wow.
Which is a little mind blowing because I don't think that's the norm for most of the military, but because we are such a small niche organization, that for some reason there just has not been a lot of women that have been pulled into work and to come to JMRC. So it's very interesting. But that was something that we had I realized when I came into my position. I was like, I think I'm the first, we call him 07. I'm like, I think I'm the first leader, like female leader that's been at JMRC. This is crazy. So there's still areas for development, but
well, I mean, that's, worldwide, it's been such a patriarchal society for so long, and the military leans into that so heavily that, one would imagine it might take a little bit longer, but I'm glad to hear, because I have a 16-year-old daughter who talks about going into the military all the time, and, a couple of years ago, I was adamant against it. Over the course, and a lot of it has to do with doing these Fearless Female interviews, and through the foundation I've gotten in touch with some women veterans groups, and so my opinion on it has changed a little bit, but of course, as a mom you're always going to worry about something like that. But, I'm very glad, because I've also, from different people's perspectives, there's an opinion that there's different branches of the military that might be a little bit more female friendly or female safe. And the Army was not ranked high on that list in the opinions of people that I've talked to, which the Army is where she's leaning towards most. So for me, I'm very happy to hear that there are some changes being made. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like being a mom in the military?
Yeah, it's hard. There's no getting around it. I have had a few leaders that I've worked with in the past that had dual military. So my leader and their spouse were both in the military raising kids, and I don't know how they did it. That is something that is so difficult to do. And even outside, we're not doing our regular deployments like we were when I was younger, where you were deploying almost every other year and being away from home. But so I respect so much I have so much respect for the people that are doing it, that are actually able to make it work. But a lot of the times you see that it's not so easy. If there's two people on active duty, usually one of them gets out just because it's too difficult to be able to align your careers and for childcare and everything else. So unfortunately, that is a little bit of a difficult portion of the military and being in the Army. But for me, I made the choice to get out of active duty, because on the active duty track, you have some say into where you go, but you really don't have full control of your life, of where you want to be. And so joining the reserves really allowed me to have that control and that say. And so that's when I met my husband, and I was supposed to be leaving a few years after I met him if I would have stayed on active duty. And so I knew I wanted kids. I knew I wanted to have a family, and that just wasn't really going to be something feasible for me. So getting out and then going into contracting has been kind of similar, except for it's more of like a 9-to-5 job. It's a little bit more predictable. So it was tough contracting, doing reserves, and being mom of two, and being a wife and doing all that stuff. So it definitely is quite a bit to take on. It's a lot of multitasking, a lot of figuring it out, but it's feasible. It's been working out okay, but it's definitely challenging to have so many hats to wear, I guess.
Oh yeah, being a mom is challenging no matter what. Working mothers, stay-at-home moms. Yeah. I can't even imagine adding that extra military element is any easier.
But I think it depends what kind of unit you're in. So luckily for me, I where I'm at now and what I'm doing now, it's a little bit more predictable. So I don't have to worry about deployments or leaving to go anywhere for 9 months or something like that and leaving the family. So that's what's been really nice, is that there are different paths that you can take and manage throughout the Army that I've actually been able to do, which has been helpful. But I think that if I didn't ask the questions and I didn't look into it more, I wouldn't have known, and that would have made it a lot harder, for sure. But it's just, yeah, it's similar to people in the corporate world, I think, too.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to go up the ladder and you're trying to be, a manager or anything, the hours and how much it consumes is so difficult. So, yeah. But it's tough, but it's somewhat manageable, but it's pretty tough.
And you have 2 of your own and a stepchild as well, right?
Yeah. Yep.
3.
Yep.
That's a lot. That's a lot to manage, and your 2 little ones are fairly close in age.
Yeah, 3.5 and 1.5, almost 2. So, yeah, little toddlers. It's a lot.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Mine just turned 3, and I can't even imagine having a 1.5-year-old running around too. It's just insanity. I mean, but mine are 21 and 16, so I've got the big kids running around with big kid problems.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't get easier; it just changes.
Yeah, I've heard.
So what do you think is, one of the advantages that you have in the military because you're female?
An advantage. I think.
Or something that you bring forward because you're female, if that's, a little narrows it down.
Well, I think, honestly, the stuff I learned from my first deployment and how I learned how to interact with other women has really helped, honestly. Coming into my new position, there was a lot of tensions. The organization that's higher than us that we work with regularly has 3 women in the office. The office that I'm in currently, we're all male. And I think there was a lot of contention and difficulties in communication. And so my perspective when I came in was much more of let's work together, let's figure this out type of perspective. And I think that that's been very beneficial. So I see contention happening with the male-female just dynamics of communicating and talking to each other. And so that's been something that's been really valuable. And I think the other thing too is just that being friendly and being able to work with people well. Sometimes men don't always have the ability to have a aura about them, I guess, of that friendliness, or because sometimes it's perceived a little weird or different or something, But I think for me, just being able to talk to people and being able to have the professionalism, but also have the friendliness about me has been really beneficial with building relationships and being able to help grow different areas of business, if you will, for my current position and my past position, because I still worked at Hohenfels just as a contractor. So I've been in the same organization for a while, and I think those would be the key areas, I think, as a woman and an officer and a leader that really help. When I first came to Hohenfels, I had tried to set up a program for women. There was a time when there was like a little bit more focus on trying to have groups for women, to be able to get together, to have panels, to be able to talk and to like figure out how to integrate or, work with like male dominant areas. So when I first came, we tried to get a program established, and it was a little bit difficult to get moving. Now that I'm back in a leadership position on active duty, there's been a few other women that have reached out to me with interest of looking at doing something similar. And so for me, I think that it's something worthwhile to pursue, and not only for women, but for everybody that doesn't doesn't identify to be just a, like a normal stereotypical male person in the military, or what you perceive of, oh yeah, that's a military person, you got to be this way and whatnot, and just really opening it up for everybody to be able to have a venue to outside of the organization, but that's still professional, to provide mentorship. So the good thing about that would be we'd be able to pull in a lot of lower enlisted that are in an organization that is predominantly male, I guess populated is the best way to put it. But so that's kind of like a future direction that I think we might be looking at, again, to see if it works.
I love that. Can you speak at all to some of the differences culturally living in Germany versus living in the US?
Oh, there's so many.
What are some of your favorites?
Favorites. Well, I mean, where we live, it's really calm, safe. So living out here is just really, really comfortable in that sense. The language is difficult, but it's fun still, because amongst the Americans that live here, some of us learn it, some of us don't, some of us get little bits and pieces, and it's just fun to talk about and to kind of discuss. So that's really nice. And in Bavaria, they have special terms and words that they don't necessarily have in northern Germany. So it's kind of fun to poke fun at or laugh at ourselves too. So that's nice. I mean, just over here, the festivals, the Christmas markets, the things that they do community wide are really, really fun and fun to be a part of. And then from a family perspective, I absolutely love having my kids in the German schools. So, I mean, they're young. They're in basically a nursery equivalent and a pre-K equivalent. So they go all day. And originally when I was pregnant, that was one of my concerns. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, because I was a contractor. So I couldn't get them care on post because we were a last priority and we could be bumped if there were too many active duty people that came on. So that wasn't a very good, solid plan to be able to have our kids in care. So I figured out how to get them on the German system, and I figured out that they have all-day care available. But just most of the Germans don't need it, because they actually have benefits that help them for the first year, 2 years, so that one of the parents can stay at home and help take care of the kids. So all of my friends that were German had no idea that there was any kind of services available for all-day care. And from starting, I put my son in starting at 4 months and my daughter at 6 months. And so that was interesting, because I had to figure that out kind of on my own, doing research and trying to see how we were going to manage having a life here and being able to work full time. So, but it worked out. So that was really good.
Sounds like it might be slightly easier than in the States.
Yeah.
Because I mean that those resources aren't available, and like one of the, running a women's foundation, one of the biggest hurdles for moms is childcare.
Yeah.
Just the lack of availability and the sheer expense of it is just massive.
I know, that's crazy.
We only have 20 hours a week of childcare for our daughter, because that's all we can afford. That's all we can afford that we are willing to utilize.
Right. Yeah.
There's other things available. I just don't want to participate.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. And that's kind of one of the benefits, or one of the reasons that motivates me to stay around too longer here, because they go to school, or they go to the nursery and pre-K all day. They get German. It's a structured day. And so, like, from a mom perspective, for me, I feel okay with having them in care all day while we work, because my husband and I both work full time. So for me, it's a little bit, it's nicer to know, and yeah, it's affordable, which is if having your kids in all day care in a second language, I don't even know. I have not done the research, but I've heard just based off of regular care, I can imagine how expensive that would be.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, insane.
yeah.
I forgot what I was just going to ask you. Just left my brain. Um, yeah, I just drew a complete blank. How funny is that? Oh, I know what I was going to ask. Are there citizen options for you? And if there are, would you consider it?
There are, but no, I wouldn't. I want to try and stay affiliated with the US. And honestly, I've built my career with the military, with the Army. I really don't see me getting out of the Army anytime soon. Your time changes and shifts when you're looking at retirement. If you're on active duty, you can spend 20 years active duty, be done, and then start receiving your retirement already. So if I would have stayed active duty the whole time, I could have been done by 37, and I would have been already done, retired with one career, and then going on to a different career. But I don't know. For me personally, I enjoy teaching and instructing what I do with the reserves. Figuring out what I've been able to do with taking control over how my life is within the military has been something that's really unique, that I don't know if a lot of people know those options. So it takes a little bit of asking and talking and figuring it out. But so for me, I've been able to provide educational care to my kids, pass it on to them, and then working towards a retirement. And I've enjoyed the military, so for me, I don't mind it. But I will look forward to the time when I have completed it and I don't have this extra kind of job that I'm doing outside of like my normal work that I want to do. But yeah, so I wouldn't look at leaving the U.S. or switching citizenships or anything like that and becoming a German national. So
not going to jump ship.
No. Yeah.
So I guess I just have one last thing. If you were to give any advice to any young woman who is looking to start a military career, what's the best advice that you could give them?
I think it would be to find a mentor. So when you get in, look for a mentor. Look for, if it's a woman, if it's even a man. But like, honestly, I think moving towards a woman mentor that's older than you, that has the experience, is so valuable coming into the military, because there's a lot of challenges that you go through, and that it's not always so easy when you don't have the life experience or you don't have the experience within the military. That having somebody else to talk to and to lean on and to be able to get perspective from is very invaluable and would help tremendously, not only for personal issues but also for professional advice. So like you had said, there's some branches and some areas that you can go into that are a little bit more filled with women versus others, and that's true. But hopefully that's changing, because a few years ago they opened up all the branches to allow women into them and stuff like that. And so I foresee that adjusting quite a bit in the future, and it will take a little bit of time. But I think that would be my advice, is to look for a good, strong female mentor as you come in to help you through it.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. I really appreciate it. I hope that some of your experiences are going to help some other people, make some decisions as to possibly what they would want to do with their future in a military career. And I hope you and your family have wonderful holidays. Looks like you're still celebrating Christmas in Germany.
Yeah, of course.
It doesn't look much different.
Too. Yeah, no. Christmas is awesome here.
Awesome. Love it.
Yeah. Well, Leslie, thank you so much for having me be able to talk and asking me to do this. I really appreciate it, and it's really wonderful what you guys are doing and what the whole program is about. And so I really appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. I know it's evening there, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.